Hello there, candidates. I hope you are all doing very well. I know you're a little bit surprised to see me. Michael Koss, Michael Barrell was going to deliver this session, but is currently engaged with a bit of work that he has to do. So you're with me. Um, Today's session is really important and really meaningful. So I'm excited to run through it with you. It is going to be very practical. And the assessment also is going to be very practical. The whole point of this module is to get you ready for interviewing with employers in Australia. And so we're going to be running through the workplace culture, interview structure, sample questions, and trying to guide you through how to go about doing this successfully, because in all likelihood, it's going to be a bit different what you've done in the past. You're going to be contending with challenges like video calls, different accents, and usually a fair bit of background noise as well. So if we're able to help you prepare as much as possible for the interview, we are going to be in a very, very good place for you guys to be very successful. So with that in mind, we are going to dive straight into it. Now, item number one, I must apologize in advance for what you are about to see in terms of the number and frequency of colors. Um, I don't know what possessed me while I was making these slides. Hopefully you enjoyed them. Perhaps you should wear sunglasses while watching this module. Regardless, we are going to get into this. Please don't judge me. So, first of all, I know that we have touched on this a few times in the last couple of weeks, but I just want to go over it again to give you a few tips and tricks for the interviews. Australian workplace culture. So, what are the values we have in the workplace in Australia? Equality and egalitarianism. Everyone is treated equal. Everyone has the same rights. And this is something we covered last week. You get the same rights as an Australian. You get the same pay as an Australian. You get the same leave as an Australian. Equality is important in Australia. And it's one of those old sayings, treat others how you'd like to be treated, and also within the law, which is very prescriptive. So equality in the workplace is something that's going to be valued a lot in your interview, and respect. Directness as well. Australians love being direct. We're very open. Nothing's really hidden. And so in your answers, someone can sense very easily if you're giving a fake answer and try and look good, or if you're just being direct and honest and open about yourself. That is your task. That is your challenge. And that is what is going to create a bond. So, of course, there are ways to be nuanced and direct, and to temper it. And that's why we're doing the assessment the way we are. We're going to work through your answers. We're going to look at what you're saying, and how you're giving the answers. So the way that you're being open will be well received. Balance. So this relates to work-life balance in Australia. That is incredibly important. And where a lot of you are going to be working, that is essential part of life. This week, I was in a regional area in Australia. I know a bunch of you saw the videos that I was posting, and the workers I was talking to from Nepal, Philippines, the Pacific Islands, they were living in a beautiful town. It's quite quiet. So they work 5 days on and 2 days off in a row always, and just regular shifts, very comfortable. And so they need to have outside hobbies. So whether it's going for walks, cooking, joining sports teams, trivia nights, all sorts of things like that, having a work-life balance is really important. And that's also going to help you bond with your colleagues too. Informal is a big thing in Australia. We speak very casually. We're professional, don't get me wrong. But the way we often dress, the way we interact, it goes for that equality side of things. Everyone's kind of seen at the same level. And so people don't necessarily wear a suit and tie to work every day. It's not how we behave unless you're in a law firm, then probably that's going to be happening for you. But yeah, we maintain professionalism, but pretty informal and fun. For those of you who are going to be working in healthcare, chances are you will be wearing uniform at work, but outside of work hours, yeah, be yourself. Interact with people normally, casually. Humor is a biggie in Australia. We like to have fun. We like to have a joke. Just remember that this is also where you guys are going to be, a workplace. And so just be aware and mindful of how one should behave in a workplace too. There's nothing offensive or derogatory or anything like that, but humor's great. And finally, um, sensitivity. So when it comes to sensitivity, I'm just going to refer to my notes because I made elaborate ones for this session. Humor, sensitivity. Yeah, so in Australia, cultural sensitivity is really important, and we touched on this a little bit last week as well. You are going to encounter a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life. Australia is a very open society. That can be with regards to sexuality, family structure, can be multiculturalism. We've got people from all over the world with all different sorts of experiences. Um, and I know I've met all you guys, that you have empathy for people. You're very caring, and you guys are sensitive as well as the people who you're meeting with. And what you give to them, I'm sure you're expecting back too. And so that's something we really stress with the employers too, that whatever you guys are giving, you should receive. And sensitivity for you guys could also mean, you're going to be away from your home country, and potentially away from family, stuff like that. So you might meet people in similar situations. You might have patients in similar situations. You might have colleagues in same situations. That sort of sensitivity, empathy, caring really does go a long way in Australia to establishing a bond. So as you could see, I really was very sincere about the whole color problem with this presentation, and I assure you it only gets worse. But that was just a little refresher on the culture of the Australian workplace and how that's going to feed into your interviews and your answers and things that you can showcase, because I know that these are all values that you guys share. Okay, so I want to run with you through with you guys, and I know for some of you, this is probably old information. Some of you might not have had a job interview in years, and some of you decades. Not to worry. We are going to go through the basics. And I want to give you guys a structure to rely on in case you come across a question that kind of throws you, or something that you can prepare for yourself in advance. And so the structure of the answer is very conveniently called STAR. STAR. Situation, task, action, result. So when we're communicating in an interview, first and foremost, and I really, really want you guys to pay attention to this, active listening is important. You are going to be sitting probably in your home or in your workplace on with your headphones on a Zoom call. The internet is going to be patchy. You should be able to catch most words. You might not be able to. Listen to what the question is. And if you don't understand what it was, or you couldn't quite hear it, just politely say, I'm sorry, the internet was a little patchy then. Could you please repeat the question? And they will. These things happen. Technology is technology. It is what it is. But throughout the interview, you will find the Australians will talk a lot, like a lot. They want you to know about their company, they want you to know about the culture, they want you to know about how shifts are going to run, how what hours you're going to do, what your work expectations are. Chances are, and this is what I've seen in the past, they are going to do a lot of the talking for you. And that's also because they're really, really nice. Um, Before your interview, these employers have seen your pack, they've seen your video, um, they know your CV, they want you. They want you to come work with them. And so, to a degree, they're also putting on a bit of a show. They want to impress you. They want to court you to come and work on the other side of the world. So if you're listening to this and hearing them talk a lot, take that as a good sign because they're trying to win you over. So if you're listening to all these things, what you'll be able to do is start picking up the threads of what they really value. And so when they ask you a question, then you can give them a really structured response. So if they ask you about, I'm not sure, a time where you completed a really challenging task. And through this session, I'm just going to rely on a bunch of examples from my own life. And that includes being a lawyer, entrepreneur, all those sorts of things. So, I need to give an example then of a really challenging thing that I accomplished. So my situation would be, okay, something along these lines. I was asked by one of the partners of the firm to help out on a restructuring of a family's logistics business and their associated trusts. However, the task given to me was to find a particular document that they absolutely could not find for the last 2 years. So I dove into the databases, document repositories, pulled out the files, and I went through everything manually. I was just intent on proving to the partner that I could find this information that they needed. And actually, within 2.5 hours, I was able to get that result. And the whole case was closed in about 2 weeks after that, whereas they've been working on it for 2.5 years beforehand. So it was a really great outcome for the entire firm. Something like that is very clear and concise. You can see I covered a lot of detail in only a few sentences. The situation was clear, what I was given, what the broader circumstances were around why the task was given to me, what the task was, what action I took in order to resolve that, and then the result of it occurring. So answers don't have to be long to be meaningful and to give you a really clear example of what someone's capable of. And I'm sure all of you guys, whether you're in caregiving, nursing, IT, allied health, whatever it is, you can think of very clear situations and circumstances where that has happened. It could do with wound care, it could be with addressing a bug, it could be, anything along those lines. And if you need to, write a couple of these down, have them in your back pocket. So you don't have to think like I just had to do to figure a situation out, to give an example. So I hope that's useful. STAR, situation, task, action, result. Super, super logical. And it really keeps your answer nice and succinct. And it just shows the way that you can think about these things to the employer, and they'll probably be pretty thrilled by it. Okay, let's have some tips for the interview. So there are a few things that we can focus on here that are going to be really, really important for you. And the first is really serious. I want you to pay attention to this very, very first point. It's taking meaningful pauses. Sometimes if you're telling a story or if you're interacting with someone, just a pause can give a bit of gravity to the situation. And sometimes also you need to take a breath. Otherwise things come off a bit hurried. The other thing is you might want to take a pause just before you give an answer to consider the question. If someone asks you, can you tell us a time when you have dealt with a very troublesome patient? You might then say, that's a really great question. I was helping a 60-year-old patient with dementia about 3 months ago, and so on and so forth. That pause can change the tone of the conversation. It can quiet the room for you. So that could be a really fun toy to play with. Next one is ask questions. And we'll go over this a little bit later on as well. I'm going to give you some questions that you can ask. But the employers want to see you engaged and they want to have a conversation with you. Australia, the workplaces aren't so big that you're going to get lost in a big bureaucracy. These are people you're going to be working with every day. And by asking questions, it shows you're really interested in their business and in the work. So it could be something like, thank you so much for the information you've given so far. It's really helpful. Are you able to tell me a little bit about what the day-to-day shift structure looks like? What sort of things would I be expected to do? Um, those sorts of things can, take the conversation to the next level into a clinical discussion, let's say in healthcare and in technology, similar things. If you're talking about tech stacks, if you're talking about sprints, all of that sort of stuff. And hopefully within their answer, they're giving you some threads to pull about what they value. Could it be wound care? Could it be databasing? I'm covering a few different industries here, but that's what you're kind of hoping for from the question. Something to attach to that then you're able to say, that really helps. I really love working with patients who do XYZ, or taking the afternoon to be able to sit with the patients. That is so much fun for me because blah, blah, blah. Show that interest, show that personality. It will really go a long way. Research. We are going to be sending you all the details of where you are going to be interviewing for before the interview. We will send you details about the facility, what the role is going to be, type of patients you're likely to be working with. Do your own research afterwards. Research the location, research the facility, know a bit about it, know what to expect. And that will really help ask meaningful questions. Eye contact is important, and it is so awkward on a video call. I cannot tell you, because on the one hand, you want to look at the screen where the people are. But also, if you're looking at the screen, you're not necessarily looking at the camera. And the camera is what catches the eyes. And just be conscious of it, that potentially, if you are looking down as opposed to camera level, you might appear a bit evasive. They might not connect with you so much. And the eyes really give so much insight into a person. So where you can, and just kind of remember it on and off throughout the session, just make sure you look up at the camera. Just periodically, it does help. The next one I want to touch on is confidence. Every single one of the candidates that I've interviewed has lacked confidence in a skill that they are very good at, and that is speaking English. You guys have been educated in it for all of your education, your postgraduate education, whatever it is. You guys are natural speakers. And if you're coming into these interviews nervous about language skills, it's going to read all over your face. And so even if you're not feeling confident on the inside, we just play through. And I have to do the same thing whenever I'm in particular forums and I think, oh my goodness, I'm talking to such big people. Are they going to respect my opinion or not? Chances are the thing they're going to respect most is my tone and the conviction that I have in what I say. So sitting up straight, shoulders back, and speaking with authority can go a very, very long way in ensuring the person listening to what I have to say believes in what I have to say. So I would love for you guys to have that confidence about you, because I genuinely believe, and we have done recorded interviews, you deserve to have that confidence. The next one is practice. Um, your nerves will dissipate and go away the more you practice this and the more you know it. And I'm someone who does a lot of public speaking, for instance, and very often I will be giving a speech and I will freeze. Like mentally, it goes somewhere else entirely. But because I practice so much before I actually get up and do my speech or presentation, whatever it is, my body goes into reflex mode and everything just kind of continues according to the script that I have. And it really, really helps. It gives me a safety net where we can go on autopilot and I can compose myself in my head. And rather than a situation where this is something that happened a few times on our calls when we were doing our video recordings, when I was meeting with you guys, an interview could start like this. So, David, tell me about yourself. David would respond, um, David, caregiving, and I'm sorry, just a bit nervous. Can we start again? Can we start again? You can see how that is very distracting. And if you are in an interview with someone, that's just not going to fly. They need to know that you know what you're talking about, because if you are on the floor at work and all of a sudden you get nervous and you want to do over, that doesn't happen. So instead, what I expect is, hi David, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Hello, I'm David. I work in caregiving. I've been working in this area for about 15 years now, really passionate about it. And I'm really hopeful that I'll get this opportunity to come and work in Australia with your organization. And thank you for taking the time to interview me. We're not saying much there, but we are showing confidence in the voice. I'm not giving much detail about myself because I'm too nervous to. So I'm just moving to appreciation. If they're hearing it on the other side, they're like, oh, so polite. My goodness, and so humble. Um, let's use whatever we can to our advantage. And this is to say, as well, you guys, it's not that you're not going to be nervous. It's not that you're not going to stumble. It's not that you're not going to mess up a word. I did the same. I messed up a word in March. I was giving a talk to 150 people, not in my first language. I was speaking in Hebrew, and I have barely spoken Hebrew in 20 years. And I delivered the whole speech. There was one word that I got really stuck on, and the whole audience just started cheering and clapping. And eventually I got there, and it's all on video. I can prove this. But the point is, I didn't stop and say, guys, can I just start again? I stood there. Everyone was there for me. And I figured out the word and I kept on going. And then the applause just roared. And still everyone's talking about the speech. I'm a bit proud of it. But that's for you guys to do as well. But before that as well, I spent the day practicing that speech. I knew my punchlines, I knew my intonation, I knew my inflection. And so even though I was nervous up there, and I'm sure the camera will show as well how much my leg was shaking, I was able to play through. And so you will find the more you practice your answers, the more you know them, the easier this will be for you. And then the final point is just be ready. This is something that always, when it came to studies, I found that if I was studying and I had an exam that I hadn't practiced enough for, I would be nervous for the exam. If I had done the work and I was well practiced and ready, then I never had any nerves for the exam. And you will find the same for the interview. Don't think about what the interview could be for you in terms of your career, in terms of salary, in terms of moving to Australia. Just deal with the interview for what it is. It is you speaking to some really nice people who love your profile and want to get to know you better. Be ready for it, be prepared for it, and absolutely shine with it. Now, after the interview conduct, more colors. I really want to just emphasize to you guys a few points. Number one, these guys who are hiring move quickly. If the interview is successful, they don't waste time. There's no need to. They need staff yesterday. Offers can come out pretty quickly afterwards. It is the expectation from us that you will be respectful about that. And if we are putting you forward for an interview, we would have discussed with you the opportunity beforehand. If the offer comes, we expect you to take it. We negotiate really, really good offers too. And so if we're getting to the interview point, we hope that you guys are already really serious and you guys are going to show that respect to the employer as well. Because number one, your reputation is important. This is a small community in healthcare in Australia. If you guys interview and then try new negotiations or reject the offer or try coming back or go around, whatever it is, the word gets out. It absolutely gets out. It still amazes me how everyone knows each other. When I was out on the road trip this week, how many people know other people that I work with all over the country, because they all talk, they all go to conferences, they all meet with each other, they all tell stories. So please take this whole process seriously. And if you are in the interview, you get up to that stage and you're accepting it as we go, then we expect the behavior after the interview to be really orderly, really prompt. and very respectful to the employer. And we have had candidates over the last few weeks as well turn down some interviews because the job wasn't quite right for what they were looking for, which is totally fine. Tell us at that stage, not at the interview stage, not after the interview. Okay. So be prompt on all your emails with the employer, CC us. The employer CCs us as well. There shouldn't be anything that we aren't privy to. We are here to help you guys as much as we are there to help the employer. And we're going to be working with you guys for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years while you're in Australia as well. So we want to make sure everything is running really smoothly for you. If you guys are having any change in circumstances, just keep your employer informed. If you're going on vacation, you might not be able to sign your contract immediately or something like that. Just send an email to them on your phone saying, thank you so much for sending me the documents. I don't have access to my laptop right now to sign. However, I intend to. I will be back at my laptop on such date, and I'll be sure to get you your documents. Just little things like that really help. We don't want to be chasing you down. We know that you guys really value these opportunities, and you're adults as well. You're going into jobs that are paying between $55,000 Australian and $120,000 Australian. The expectation is that you will conduct yourselves with the appropriate amount of professionalism. And sorry if I'm sounding blunt at the moment or direct, but that is part of the Australian culture. I want you guys to understand what our expectations are with you. The important thing to remember here is your reputation is important. Everyone talks, but also everything's an interview. So these employers are taking a bet on you. They're saying, okay, we're not going to hire someone from Australia. We're going to bring someone in overseas and they're going to fill that role. We're going to pay them the same, but they haven't really done much in Australia before. We're hoping they're going to like it. They're always questioning everything. And any drop in communication can really damage the confidence that they have in you. And that's a problem because they shouldn't. You guys are great. Don't give them an opportunity to question things. Everything is an interview. Every correspondence is an interview. You're always under assessment. That's just the nature of work. And you guys should take that with a lot of pride that you are professional. You do conduct yourself really well. You are experienced in your industries. And so behave accordingly. Do yourself the justice of behaving in that manner so you can reap the advantages of it. And if you've ever got any questions, I'm here, Michael's here, our country teams are there as well. What we do as well is when the employment process is going on or has completed the interview process, we'll set up WhatsApp groups too and coordinate there. That is where you can ask questions 24/7. We are there to help, but we don't want the employer to get a sense that you guys are not necessarily corresponding with them in the manner that you should. They should feel everything is as seamless as possible. And that will also reflect then hopefully in your work. Now, let's get into some real stuff. Let's have a bit of fun. Okay. So, scary question preparation. What I often see when I am watching an interview happen. So, Michael and myself will usually be on the interview call. We will introduce you. We'll introduce the people on the other side of the call, and we will stay on listening to what the interaction is. So we've heard quite a few of these. We know what happens in the interviews, and some of these questions can catch you guys by surprise. And that's why we want to run through it. It's kind of a mix of casual Australianness as well as interview pressure that can make a bit of a perfect storm. And so let's run through a few of these questions. I'm going to try and give you guys some sample answers as well. Just off the top of my head, I will use myself as the example. So yes, you are free to judge me because, well, I'm putting myself out there in this forum. But on the assessment, I'm going to be asking the same thing of you guys, and we will workshop these answers together. So yes, it is coming on 9:30 in the evening on a Friday. I am sure I am going to be wonderful at this. Yeah, let's have a look. Question number one. Tell us about yourself. Isn't that a dreaded question, my friends? At the start of an interview, there might be three, four, five people on a panel, each at a different Zoom location, and they say, "Hey there, tell us about yourself." Do you give a long answer? Do you give a short answer? What is the best approach for this style of question? And so for me, I would start off with something along the lines of, well, thank you very much for asking me. My name is Michael Cuss. I'm 38 years old and I live in Melbourne, Victoria, in Australia. I'm a lawyer by training, but I work in digital healthcare and also in international recruitment. Um, One of the things I love doing is getting out in public forums. I've been fortunate to have opportunities to negotiate for Australia on free trade agreements, be part of the G20 forum, and I just generally love what I do. I'm really excited to delve deeper into this discussion, to be honest. I've been looking forward to meeting you all. This is an opportunity I have been looking forward to. So thank you so much for your question. Just something like that. It gives them things that they can pull on. If you're having this conversation about caregiving, let's say it can be, um, hello, my name is Emily. Why not? I'm 35 years old. I'm born in the Philippines, but I've actually just spent the last 3 years working in Doha as a personal caregiver. My patient was in her 90s and recently passed away, which has been a little bit sad. For me, I really bonded with her, and it was just such a joy working with her and her family for the past 3 years. And I've recently returned to the Philippines, and it's been wonderful seeing my family, but I'm ready for my next chapter. And I'm excited about the prospect of coming to work in Australia. I read a bit about your organization and I saw that you have dementia patients at your facility. I've really enjoyed working with dementia patients in the past. I've done that both in the Philippines and in Doha. So I'm really excited to talk more about this opportunity. So those are just a couple of examples, just throwing them off literally off the top of my head. But if you guys have something prepared for yourselves that gives a few little threads for the employer to focus on, you'll find it's really helpful just to get the conversation going. And also, that's your opportunity to steer the conversation. We'll be touching on this a little bit later on, but I want you to make sure that if there are some highlights or things you want them to be asking you about, that you include it in this answer. On to the next question. Why do you want to work with us? Oh, isn't that a gross one? And really, they have every right to say this. And I got a really good sample question for this one, a sample answer rather. Um, so this is a technology answer that I wanted to read out to you guys. So I thought this was pretty good. I've always admired how your organization uses technology to enhance healthcare delivery, particularly your recent initiatives in digital health records. Coming from a tech savvy background in healthcare IT, I'm really eager to contribute to your projects that integrate technology to improve patient care. I'm also really impressed by your commitment to continuous learning and professional development, which is really crucial for my career growth. I think I'd be fantastic in this organization. When I think about, let's say, a care facility, and this is something that you guys are going to be facing in healthcare, let's say we have a 60 bedded aged care facility in a small town in Australia. Why do you want to work there? And it's very fair to give an open answer. So it could be something along the lines of, I've read about your organization and I can see that you guys deal mainly with community health and vulnerable patients. It's really a beautiful model that you operate. And I can see that even though you've only got 60 beds, you resource the place really, really well. And it's a culture that I can contribute to. I'm used to in my own work, currently having to juggle a few different people's roles and chip in where I can. But I like being busy at work, and I think I would be busy at your workplace and really enjoy being part of a close-knit team that really speaks to me. Um, I do have some personal circumstances that come to mind as well. I want to be able to support my family. I want to be able to make them proud too. And I think I would be very proud to tell them that I work at your organization. Something like that could also resonate. And again, with all of these, there is no correct answer. There is no wrong answer. There is just the answer you're giving, and we'll try to make it as best we can. And all I'm doing in my answers is just trying to give you guys an example of things that could be said that hopefully triggers in your mind something that relates to you. So let's go on to the next question. This is incredibly fun. I assure you, I'm having a great time. Tell us about a challenging situation that you faced. This is a great opportunity to use that star analogy, star system that we were talking about before. Situation, task, um, situation, task, A. What was A? Result, and A was, oh, we're going to scroll back up. Situation, task, action, and results. Very good. Okay. Tell us about a challenging situation that you recently faced. Okay. So what is one that I can use? Oh, okay. I've got a fun one. Um, so for a business, no, actually, it's not a great situation. For a, here we go. I'm just going to use the one that I wrote earlier. Um, so this is the technology example. In my previous role as a software developer in the Philippines, we faced a critical challenge where our main project's data got corrupted 2 days before the deployment deadline. I implemented data recovery processes while simultaneously rewriting sections of the code that were lost. We worked overnight and I managed to restore 90% of the data, recreated in the rest in time. This experience taught me the importance of backup systems and teamwork in a crisis. That's a very nice answer. Okay, I'm going to try and give one from my one. Okay. So during COVID, I was working in digital health in India, and I was requested by a hospital to provide step down care utilizing technology for patients where there wasn't a bed available for them in hospital. So I had to source the technology to be able to deploy bedside care at residential homes in Delhi. And I went personally to set up the remote patient monitoring in people's homes, train the nurse on how to use the systems, and then coordinate with the doctors at the base hospital so they could see the live patient statistics and vitals while the patient was being monitored. What ended up happening is we were able to support patients from home so they didn't have to be exposed to a hospital environment. And where a patient's vitals did tank, then they were able to be escalated to hospital really quickly. And I recall one example of a patient whose BP dropped really very suddenly, and we were able to get her an ambulance within 20 minutes and get her back to the hospital. So that's an example of a challenging situation using the STAR method. Hopefully that's useful. And I'm sure you guys, as you start thinking about it, situations will pop up. Ooh, how do you handle pressure? Okay. So for me, I tend to work really well under pressure, largely because I'm well organized. In my day-to-day work activities, I keep lists and I keep generally all of my tasks well organized throughout the day. So if something does happen, that is very much all of a sudden and takes away my attention, I still have my systems to go back to afterwards to make sure nothing is missed. And while that pressurized situation is happening, I love working in a team. I love supporting other team members. We consistently faced in my industry with patients going through various traumas, and it does take time to bring them back down and make them comfortable. And so I know that that is my role to be there for them and to help them through those challenges. And it can be very emotional, but also at the same time, it is my job to balance all of my other patients and duties too. And so I find my organization skills are really the defining factor that help me handle pressure. So that's one example, again, just thrown off the top of my head. You guys will have very different examples as well. But this is a question that often does come up. What are your greatest strengths and weaknesses? Oh, this is a very fun one, because when we speak about directness in Australia, this is the one that usually we can tell if someone is lying or not. Because there's, always the politically correct diplomatic answers versus, telling the truth. Um, so one of the ways that I would tell you guys to highlight this is, and to answer this question as a structure is, um, say what your strength is and how you put it to use. Say what your weakness is and how you attempt to address it. So we might say something like, I am really good at learning. I've got a curious mind. I like to pick up new skills. And so I often volunteer at my work to do the new training courses that come out, or I seek out weekend courses that I can be a part of to enhance my work skills. It's something that I really enjoy, but also I'm quite good at picking up the new information and implementing it. When it comes to my weakness, probably public speaking is something that I have struggled with. So I've tried to put myself in situations where I have to speak in public to get used to it. And that's included giving a guest lecture at my college and also helping train some new candidates as well who are going to be joining our industry. And I can say I'm gradually getting better and I'd love to keep on working on it. So again, that's just off the top of my head, hopefully something that's useful, but as a structure, um, showing how you can utilize the strength and also how you're remedying the weakness is probably how you want to look at answering that question. The final big question. Oh my goodness, this is where so much goes wrong. Um, so we spoke a little bit earlier about showing engagement and curiosity about the place where you're going to be working, showing that interest. And at least 90% of the interviews that I see, when the interviewer asks, do you have any questions for us? I can promise you they are hoping for you to ask. They want you to ask because they want to show off what they do. They want to hear your engagement, but also they want to talk about themselves a bit. This interview is all about you. Now it's their time to shine. And this is your opportunity to show them as well that you've done some research, you've thought about this. So oftentimes in an interview, one can draw a blank. You just, in the heat of the moment, you just want it to just end this interview and also not say anything wrong. By asking a question, then all of a sudden, you're opening Pandora's box. Who knows what's going to happen next? Whereas you could just end the interview and the pain will be over. I encourage you to lean into it. It is worth it. And so I've got a few questions here that potentially you guys could ask as just something to get the conversation going. So questions like, what does a typical day look like in this role? Can you describe the team I'll be working with? What do you enjoy most about working there? How is success measured in this role? What are the next steps in the interview process? And I can see how is success measured in this role repeated twice on the slide. So please don't comment on that. I just noticed it again. It is late, and don't judge me. So those are some questions that you can ask. Usually, I'll just flag with the what are the next steps in the interview process question. I would never lead with that as the first question. I think that from when I've done interviewing, projects a sense of arrogance. Um, Firstly, get a bit of a dialogue going with the interviewer. So asking any of the above questions is usually a really good way to get that going. And whatever they respond to you with, um, try and give a comment back afterwards or ask a follow-up question just to show engagement and show them that they can have a conversation with you. I know it's awkward. It is what it is. It's an interview. No one's saying that it's got to be pleasant, but these things really, really do help. And if you are going to ask what the next steps in the interview process are, make that your last question, not your first. Now, this is our final piece for this session. And it's a little bit of an advanced technique. It's a bit strategic, but I think you can do it. So this is called controlling the conversation. And essentially what it is each time you are asked a question, whether it is tell us about yourself, what are the challenges that you have faced, all these sorts of things, focusing on topics and giving threads for them to pull that are kind of like leading them down the rabbit hole that you want them to go down. So if you want to talk about wound care, if you want to talk about your experience working in the Middle East, if you want to talk about a particular type of technology or code, if or front end, back end, whatever, if you want to talk about patients um, who are at home or bedridden or have respiratory issues or dialysis, whatever it is, if you can drop these hints into the answers that you're giving, it kind of leads them to ask follow-up questions. So an example could be, uh, if I want them to ask me a bit about wound care, in telling me about yourself, it might be, and I definitely have a passion for wound care. And I've been fortunate to receive some extra training on that by some plastic surgeons in the country in helping me care for particularly elderly patients. And so then the natural response to that is going to be something like, oh, what sort of techniques have you been taught? And that lets you then flex your muscles and show a bit of clinical expertise. Or you could say, I really like working with patients who have cognitive issues or decline. Um, Calming them has been a really rewarding part of my work. And I really just like to see our residents very happy. And so then the follow-up question to that would probably be, that's really interesting. Can you tell me about some of the calming techniques that you use when you're with your patient and they're feeling distressed? So that gives you, again, the opportunity to showcase yourself. And same with technology. Could be, I've really enjoyed in the past working with integrating payment wallets into technologies. I'm really familiar with those codes. Okay, that sounds really great. Can you tell us about some of the wallets that you have integrated and what that process was? Um, by you leading the conversation, you get to really show yourself off. So what we will do in the answers in the assessment is have a look at these key themes that you guys are really passionate about and you guys are experienced about to try and get these threads that you can rely on, that if you are asked about these in the interview, you'll be really happy because it's like playing at your home ground. This is your advantage. And so that's part of the job that we will do next together. Um, we are coming on 50 minutes. I hope this has been a meaningful session for you. It's something that we take really seriously. This is something we know from experience. And I know this is a crash course and refresher in something that is very complicated. And that's why also for this modules assessment, please take your time. There's no rush. Um, there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, but this is an opportunity for you to use the TPC team to really help you with some of your interview answers and get you ready for that next step. Um, so yeah, take your time, enjoy it. Again, thank you for enduring the colors throughout this presentation. Hopefully there haven't been too vivid. And as always, it is a pleasure, and I am always around to answer your questions. And I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, wonderful weekend ahead. And to all of you on night duty, I hope you have a very calm and relaxed night too. Thank you all very, very much.